Okay, today is May 17th, 2023. My name is Gina Matos, and I'm with the Houston Asian American Archive interviewing Tiffany Hung Hui Lee. Thank you for taking time out of your schedule to do this interview with us today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's a great honor.
Great, so we can just go ahead and get into the first question. If you can tell us when and where were you born?
I think we get cut off a little bit.
No worries, my apologies.
Okay.
The first question is when and where were you born?
Oh, I was born in Taiwan, Taipei. Uh, and you asked me when and where, right? Okay. So that was many years ago, 1962, many years ago.
What was it like growing up in Taipei, Taiwan?
um, well, Taiwan got its name given by Portuguese people, meaning Formosa, means beautiful island. So island really is a very beautiful place. Have a distinct four season. So it got a beautiful place. And season is wonderful, and transportation is good. You can go everywhere. Hop on the metro bus everywhere. Um, and it's very colorful, and I think that kind of related to my artwork too. Everything's colorful because everything's come from nature, all the stuff. So I'll have a great time staying in Taiwan for 18 years, so it was great. So
Who are your parents? What were your parents' occupations? And if in any way, how did it influence your upbringing?
um my my father's work in textile business, and my mother also worked in the textile as well too, and that's how they both met. And he worked his way up to uh, the manager, and then later on become the textile manufacturer vice president, and then later on he owned the second largest textile business in Taiwan. And then so as a result, every day what we see is textile, and then we visit the loom all the time to see how all the weaving take place. So pretty much take place when I was a kid, see all the stuff. So and then that is kind of pretty much what my parent does. That's where they met each other as well.
You also mentioned that you have three siblings. So do you have any memorable stories with them that you would like to share?
Yeah, I have one brother and then the sister and the youngest brother. We are pretty much 2 years apart. So we pretty much kind of do things together, play things together, discover things together. And we also fight as well too. You know how siblings are. Anyway, because we have very strong opinion. And I think that's a part of upgrowing that my parents allow us to have our own opinion, but with a very strict rule, like we also had to follow certain things like that. um we do, like we would do a science project together, and then we would say, oh, let's build things together. So we will find things around the house or even nearby the park and build things together. And we are very into a science project, and we are constantly wanting all kind of science project and things like that. It's mainly because my parents allow us to discover things. We just kind of, nothing can be, never say, oh, this is impossible. We always say, well, what do we try, what if we try this material, what we try to, what we can make out of something, so. But also at the same time, you can imagine how messy the house is, so anyway, so yeah, it's building project together and discover things together. It's always fun, and I think in a sense it's make us be more creative, because you do a lot of things through doing things and learning things like that. Anyway.
You briefly mentioned this in that answer. So just going off of that, what values did your parents instill in you and your siblings growing up?
Well, my family is coming from a Buddhist family, so not only we have a Chinese tradition, but it's followed very strongly a Buddhist, and Buddhists told us that be kind, be nice, because whatever you do is it will have result of the effect on that, and what we have this life is pretty much what we done the previous life, and then reincarnation whatsoever, and also loving another mankind or animal whatsoever. It's very important, and respect an elder, which is part of culture as well too, but it's very, very strict. So like every holiday we celebrate pretty much, and also visit my grandparents is the key thing no matter what, as well as the knowing what holiday represent, and we actually do the ritual of each ceremony as well too, and because that's very important for them, and that's what they believe in. So as a result, they also taught us to follow that at the same time. So I think in a way it's good, because coming to America right now, all the holiday that we know, most people know is a Chinese lunar calendar for the Chinese New Year, but a lot of time we'll forget other holiday, not Lunar Festival, Dragon Ball, which we kind of celebrate over here, but this is an Elders Days. We also have the day for the liberation, the day for the great for the respect the folks pass away, those holidays. And those holidays is very essential because it ties into the fourth season as well too. And I think those holiday doesn't get celebrated as much in United States, because this is United States, and for a newer generation, those who either first or second immigrant Chinese kids, I think those cultures kind of getting thinner, and then some of it don't even know what it's about. I mean, they know, okay, we eat this kind of food, but why we eat this particular food for this particular holiday? And I think it's important to have that to be continued, because that's a part of our DNA. We need to nurture it. I mean, who don't want to know who they are? I think this is very important key element, that know who we are, we respect it, and whether how you want to go from there, and then that's individual decision. But I think having the tradition very strict at home, even though we are over here, I think it brought back to a lot of good cultural and also memory, and I was able to taught my daughter the same way as well too. So
I see. Did you have any notable mentors in your life? It can be family, it doesn't have to be family.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is a couple. Like when I was a kid, well, according to my parents, when I was 3 years old, they asked me where I want to go to kindergarten, and apparently they say that I told them I want to go to a city with my grandparents, which I was kind of like, why would 3-year-old want to be live with the grandparents? But anyway, so apparently that's why I say, and they sent me to Taipei instead. My parents' house is in the outskirts of the Taipei, it's in the city side, because it's the factory, they had to work over there. And then so therefore I had to go with my grandparents live in city. And during those years, especially 3 to 5, with my grandparents, so they told me everything, a lot of things like how to look at things, like look at the flower, look at the nature, look at the sky, and appreciate about everything surrounding us. I remember real vivid that one time someone gave me a flower, it was beautiful, and I look at it, but within a couple of seconds it started wilting, and I was crying real hard. And my grandmother told me, no worry, just put it in the water, and then it will come back alive, but it will not be very long. I said, well, how come? I said, because this flower is already taken away from the region, so therefore the life is it's only short frame. I said, and also told me the beauty of nature whatsoever, that it's very, very short, so we gotta treasure that moment. And I think that treasure that moment and respect nature, it quite a deep roots when I was growing up, and so I learned about nature, how to see things, and how to let go of things as well too. And she told me that pick out the flower, look through it, and look toward the sky, and you will see that this flower will live in your heart forever. And for 3-year-old, I don't think I can understand at that time. But I think now I look back at my life, I think those are important lessons. And so I learned a lot of things through my grandmother, and my grandfather told me how to write the traditional calligraphy. And he's a very well-known calligrapher in Taiwan. And so he told me how to write those. And at that time, I was thinking, oh, what is this wiggly brush and the black ink had to do with anything? But at the same time, it really had to do with everything, because the calligraphy taught, especially for in Asian kids, every stroke you take, the first stroke is heavy, and then in between is light, and then at the end of the stroke it's heavy again. So the beginning and the end is heavy, as in the middle it's how you kind of roll this paintbrush, things like that. So those kind of things, I think, in a sense, it applied to everyday's life. We're beginning with certain thing, and then in between is how we make out of it, and then we journey coming back to the when we started. In the sense, it's kind of like full circle. So I think they are related very much. So that is my early childhood mentor. And I think when I was in middle school, I had one teacher, and she just out of college, and she taught us the subject is Chinese. And I just love everything about it. And before I come to America, I was like, okay, this is it. I want to be a Chinese teacher as well, too, because she just taught us so much. And she opened the world about Chinese philosophy, and also the history, and also how to write beautifully, and also how to do things beautifully through the literature, and without going through some brutal language that express yourself in a sense. And this teacher, up to this day, I've been come to America more than 40 plus years now. I'm still contact with her, and we talk to each other weekly, and every time I visit Taiwan, I still went to visit her anyway. And also in America, in this case, I have my teacher, Richard Stow. He's a very famous painter in the United States, especially in Houston. Museum of Fine Art has his collection all the time, and he taught at U of H, and that was my first year at U of H. Just got in, tried to take some basic class, and then I never done oil painting before, and so he taught us. And this instructor didn't talk very much, because he wanted you to see things, observing things. So in the sense, it's good because I barely can speak English at that time when I get into the college. So in the sense, I keep on watching him all the time, watching his stroke, all the stuff, and how he handled medium, all the stuff, So he taught me a lot of things. And then right before he passed away, which was 1 month before the pandemic hit, 2020, we saw each other in front of Museum of Fine Art, and for one of the lecture. And at that time, we haven't seen each other for a while. And then from the distance, I saw him. I said, "Oh, that's Richard." And I tell myself, "Oh, I better not go to say hi, because I'm pretty sure he won't remember me by now, And he said, "Come over, come over." I think, "Me?" I said, "Yeah, you come over." And we have a good chat. And he said, "What have you been doing?" I said, "Oh, I've been working on interior design." And he said, "Oh, really?" He was kind of disappointed, because he was hoping that I'm pursuing the fine art, like do a drawing, a painting, things like that. Anyway, I said, "No, because when I'm out of school, first job available is interior design business." So I took the job right away, And I said, "Yeah, I understand." I said, "Well, have you done any drawing lately?" I said, "Yeah, I've been working on a lot of drawings, because I have the drawing to present my idea to the client." He said, "Oh, well, that's good." I said, "Oh, by the way, I'm going to Young Center now, so I'm going to have my first solo exhibition." And he said, "Oh, that's great. I will come." And then because he believed education as well as the life drawing stuff is continue everyday's life, things like that. And he also is the one responsible for a lot of the artists having their show at Young Center many years ago. And then so when he found out I got into Young Center, he was pretty pleased. but unfortunately, he never able to attend my solo exhibition at Young Center because he passed away during the COVID, things like that. So those are three different set of people that it's important in my life because they taught me a lot of life lesson as well as the cultural, as well as the for me to understand what life and arts and science, how they combine together.
Thank you for such a detailed and comprehensive answer. It's so interesting knowing now that you're an interior designer and an artist, and it's pretty clear that they obviously affected who you are and your work. So it was very interesting to hear. Moving forward more into education, kind of going back, assumably you attended primary and secondary school in Taipei. So I wanted to ask, what was the education system like in Taipei?
Well, education system in Taiwan is, in a sense, it's more like, okay, test after test after test. It's almost like become memorization. So if you're capable of memorize everything, then you can ace out on everything because every level you had a test in. So the education that, okay, if you go to your first year of the elementary school, you had a test in. Okay, and then once you test in, you got test in again, whether you can get into the second level. So it's a constant, never-ending testing. And then once you're done with your elementary school, middle school, and then high school, every stage you test in order to get into the next level. Before you go to college, you call it intern examination for the whole nation, and it takes place 2 days, July 1st and July 2nd, 2 days nonstop, every subject test, and tests from grade 1 through grade 12. And in 2 days test, which is ridiculous. I think the system is getting a little bit better. Okay, but when I was in school at that time, 40 years ago, and that was based upon like who can memorize the most, and so as a result, what you receive is very like, okay, 1 + 1 is 2, but or they say, oh, this plus this equal this. You don't ask for what, you just say, okay, here's this, and then you don't kind of really apply them together. And I think that's the main reason that my father saw that's a problem in the education system, and that's why he applied to come to America, so that the whole purpose to come to the United States is for us getting a better education. And so that's a big difference in here. I think in America, at least my daughter grew up in here, we let her to be free, let her play things, and during the play, you learn a lot of knowledge, whether it's language or math or science whatsoever, just through playing and touching all the stuff. When I was growing up, we do not have those kind of luxury system, but I think it's getting better. But I think back then it's a little bit kind of like okay, I give you this, you memorize it, and then you are a good straight A student, and then you can move on to the next one. And I think in a sense, the straight A students, so what? You know what I'm saying? I mean, yeah, it's good, but the question, can you take the knowledge and apply to every day, and apply for society, and apply for upcoming challenge, things like that? I think that's very important. And especially in Europe, I mean, I think it's Finland or somewhere, they take kids out for the whole year long, and the parents travel with the kids whole year long, and then they come back, they end up having the best education system, because education system, in my opinion, need to be alive, need to be real, and that way you can engage, and that way you can see, oh yeah, I understand that, I got that, I have that experience. And I think that's very important. So that's why we come to America, so that we can have better education, according to my father anyway. So
We'll touch more on this later, but just for clarification, when
Yeah.
exactly did you and your family move to the States?
We moved to United States when I was 18, and actually, believe it or not, my father started apply for immigrant to United States when I was in elementary school. It's only until when I was in high school, paperwork got approved, and then we were able to come. So that was 1980. We arrived in United States. Unfortunately, when we come to the United States, my father could not come with us because he does not have a job here. And then because the paperwork got approved very late, so my brother was close to being military training age, even though he's only 16 at that time. The government won't allow him to leave the country. So therefore, he had to leave behind. And so as a result, my father booked us in the airplane and have a 1 month vacation, just basically travel from Taiwan to Japan, South Asia, and then all the places in the United States. Let us travel all the way with a travel agent, and then finally designate arrive United States, Houston area. But then the moment we arrive, my mother turned around, go back to Taiwan, because my father's still there to run the business, and then my brother's still over there. So basically, leave 3 of us in the United States. So that was many years ago.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we will touch more on your immigration experience later, but I have a few more questions about your education in Taipei. So the next question is, what were your favorite subjects in school that you remember?
Favorite subject definitely is Chinese, because I was able to write a lot of article, and I told myself I want to be a writer because I got a lot of writing got published when I was in elementary school and the middle school and high school. And then because my teacher, I told you about my mentor when I was in middle school, it's really encouraging me a lot of good books, good philosopher and all that stuff. So I read a lot of those kind of things. So Chinese has become my favorite subject. I also can say art is my favorite subject, but art was a little bit forbidden because my father don't believe that art is part of education. As open-minded he is, he just don't think that you should not spend time on the art. So we try to downplay on art very much on that. Anyway.
When did you decide to pursue a career in interior design and or art? Did you take any interior design oriented or art classes prior to attending University of Houston?
No, not at all. In fact, I wasn't even sure what I'm going to study in the college, other than I know for sure I like art very much. And then I thought first year as a freshman, I should try everything. Anyway, it's only until I took the fundamental design class and I realized I like interior design. But prior to that, in Asia, we don't have such a thing. Like, okay, elective class to study this and that whatsoever. So basically only until when I entered the University of Houston, and then I took a few art classes, and then I realized that, well, this is the one I like. And then but I didn't not necessarily decided to be interior design. It just so happened that this course gave me the chance, and then later on I pursued it for 4-year college and with a master as well for interior design. So
What influenced your decision to attend the University of Houston?
well, my father have an uncle here. I have a brother here, and then so basically we have one uncle here in the United States. And so he decided, well, I guess the best way to send the kids to another foreign country is where somewhere the relatives live. And but the funny thing is, this uncle, we only met him once, because the whole time he lived in the United States. And the first time we met him when I was 10 years old, he come back for my grandfather's funeral. And that was the first time we met him. And then the second time I met him, I was 18 when we arrived in the United States. So as much of, oh yeah, we got a relative, but it's like a relative of, you know, uh, 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 oh, the sound of it. Oh, we got a relative, and I think it's more for my father's sake. Like, oh, I got my brother over there, so my kids is with my brother, and we have an uncle. So it's more for mental thinking. Oh, okay, in case emergency, someone will be there. Those kind of things. But it just so happened my uncle was in the United States and Houston, and then so we decided to come to Houston, and then that's how I stay in Houston. And also my dad told me that, well, since my parents not here, they want me stay local to take care of my brother and sister. I was want to attend to different university, but since I need to take care of my brother and sister, so I had to stay in town for them, and then take them to school, and then after school activity, things like that. So the Houston become the place that I stay now. So anyway.
Yeah, the next question is, what was your experience at the University of Houston like? And were you involved in any extracurricular organizations while attending?
Well, it's a funny story about University of Houston. For any foreign student, you gotta pass the test. It's called Testing English as a Second Language. It's called TOEFL test, and then the score need to be 550. And at that time, my family, no one know that. That's what I need to do, because for foreign student, because you come to America and then all of a sudden everybody need to go to school. Well, it's easy to go to high school. This is your home, your address, and then you go to the one nearby. So my brother and sister was able to go to school in a middle school and a high school, and all of a sudden, first day of school, I got nowhere to go. And then when later on we discover, like, oh, you gotta have a test score because you're a foreign student, to go to apply to any university. And also by the time the deadline is already missed. So I missed the first year. And then during that year, I was quickly learn my English, so to pass the test, but I didn't pass right away. Anyway, so finally, I took a couple of times, and then the last highest score I ever get to is 549. I'm 1 point shy away from the minimum requirement. So the University of Houston very tough. She will not let me in. Yes, and then so I think, well, I keep on just kind of be wasting my life, not go to college. And then by the time I've been working, okay, as well too. And also I go to the evening class, go to community college. So I know a lot of people already. So one place I work, this person, he's as Tom Benson. He owned the very large air conditioning company, and also very well known in Houston. And so I told him, well, I missed 1 point. I cannot get into university. I said, that's nonsense. So he had Jim Baker call University of Houston. I said, we have one very intelligent young woman over here, and they would like to attend to your university. And I understand there's a situation about this TOEFL test stuff, So Jim Baker wrote a letter to University of Houston, and the dean said, no, I'm sorry. 550 is 550. I cannot make any assumption. I had to follow the rule, and so, but later on, they were able to, we're talking about the school is already started. The first week of school is already started. And 1 week after that, I got conditionally admitted to university based on a certain probation. If I do well, they might consider. But if I don't do well, then I'm out again. And I had to make sure I take my test one more time. Well, anyway, bottom line is I worked real hard that year, and then and I proved them wrong that I was able to handle it. I was on Dean's list. Matter of fact, I was Dean's list the whole time. Anyway, and I take many classes. I have no problem with communicate with my professor and attending class, all the stuff. So that way fulfill my parents' requirement that, okay, stay in Houston, taking care of my brother and sister, and then I was able to get into university and do my duty, that able to prove them that, I was able to handle the class, even though I'm a foreign student. So hopefully I answer all your questions. Did I answer all your questions? Anyway, so that's how we decided I'll go to University of Houston.
Yeah, it definitely seems like you put a lot of work.
Yeah, and also, I remember I raised the question now. I was kind of forget the question. Is that because so many class I had to take, and also had to be in a very best behavior, so to speak, that put to them that I can make it. So I studied real hard, and as a result, I didn't participate very much organization. It's one thing I regret, and I wish I can join this event or join this kind of things. I would study the whole time, part because the moment I get out of class, I go to work right away. And then and if not, then I had to take care of my brother, sister for their after school activity, things like that. So it just really leaving no time for anything whatsoever. But that's the price I had to pay being oldest, and then also my parents counting on me that to making sure that my brother sisters got taken care of because they are not here, things like that. So I didn't get much involved, and I think that that's what, in the sense that I'm trying to do as much as I can right now, involved, because I think in a sense we need to give it back and also connect with our community as well too. So anyway.
For sure. That makes complete sense. So to clarify again, my apologies if I'm being a little redundant. Were you the only one who was taking care of your siblings? I know that you mentioned you had a relative that you knew of, but was it just primarily you who was taking care of your siblings?
And it was just let me tell you this. It's a rather kind of so when we arrived here, I was 18, and we got a place to live. We will stay with my uncle for a very short time, but you know how that goes. If we stay with a relative, it's eventually we're out that welcome all the stuff. And also it's still a cultural adjustment because everybody is very Americanized, and we're still in a Chinese mall, so to speak. Nothing wrong with that. Everyone's unique its own way. And I think just everybody needs that space. So at the age of 18, I bought a house for my father in cash. And then also bought a car for my dad. And then bought all the furniture, appliances, learned how to grocery shopping, learned how to taking care of the lawn, buy all the equipment, all the stuff. So that's how the whole thing gets started. Yes, and then I remember first day, we gotta prepare lunch. And then 3 of us looking at the stove, they keep poking on a piece of pork chop, and my brother came and say, "So you think it's done?" My sister say, "I don't know." And my brother came and say, "So what do you think? What do you think?" I said, "I have no idea. I never cooked before. I have no idea." And then gotta remember back then, that's 40 years ago, 40 plus years ago. There's no Google, right? You can Google everything, then how to cook, things like that. And the computer, I mean, who have a computer at that time? We don't have a computer. We don't even have phone, and all we don't even have encyclopedia, all the stuff. And then we are coming from a family that, we got people take us to school, and then we got people cook for us, so we never know how to cook, so in a way it's kind of bad transition for us, like, oh crap, now we gotta cook, now what is to do all the stuff. And then you go read this forever long instruction, even if some food is ready made stuff, right? So you're like, okay, every 2 words, like, oh, what does this mean? Okay, somebody look out a dictionary, and so we're constantly looking at a dictionaries that right now you can tell us that da 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 da, and Google can translate for you, but back then you don't have. So 3 of us will struggle how to cook and how to survive all the stuff, but I think in a sense it makes us bonded together, and we figure out a way that, okay, Monday, Tuesday, who do what, Tuesday and Wednesday, who do what, we gotta do a dishes, so we gotta grocery, and we gotta clean the house, we gotta do and take out the trash, and try to learn a little bit everything, including the time change, so it's like, oh, time change now. Oh, well, we better not miss school today or something like that. But, just whole bunch of things that imagine that you go to another country, you got to learn all in once. And then without your only thing to do it without your parents, So, so I think a lot of immigrant, they, whether it's my age or your age or whatever, they come with the parents. So at least you got parents that's kind of overshadow you and they kind of guide you all the stuff. So we are the first generation. We are pretty much on our own, try to figure out what is going on and how to survive, things like that. Anyway, and then compared with the technology back then, it's even harder. But I think we survive. We're okay. I finished my school, and my brother, sister also, went to University of Texas. They got a good job and everything. So I think we turned out okay. We survived. It was a challenging year, but we survived.
For sure, that must have been quite the bonding exercise.
Yeah,
And
it was, is in a sense, I am amazed that we were able to survive, because I remember first phone call my dad called us, and that was before nowadays you can text each other, right? Or you can go through the Google through a different route and have a phone call. And then every phone call, like 30 minutes back then, 30 minutes phone call is $150. So we had to keep it very short and then write down the important thing so we can make decision. And the first time he called, and we cry like kids, of course we're kids, we cry. And my dad said, I didn't spend $150 for you guys to cry. So you got to tell me what's going on, So anyway, but later on we learned how to coping it, and also know that what kind of thing to ask, so that during the time phone call, we were not wasting the family money stuff, write down the notes, things like that. But nowadays, so easy, you go through line, you can get a free phone call, overseas for free, and you can talk endless, and 5 free phone call, per day, things like that. But yeah, but that was then, and everything's so expensive. We cannot call anyway. But we learn how to manage ourselves. We learn how to cope with the new culture. We also learn how to respect one to the other, through an interesting experience, I guess, for better word.
So on the subject of your immigration experience, you've talked plenty on culture shock, but I just wanted to ask if you have any notable memories of struggle with culture shock, perhaps even like outside of the household or college. Do you have any memories of that in particular?
Yeah, I think in general is I mean, we know we are come to United States, but how can you prepare yourself? Like just like right now, okay, you are going to immigrate to England. I mean, I think England, America maybe have similar culture. Let's just say, okay, now you're going to immigrate to, I don't know, somewhere the totally it's opposite of the United States. I mean, yeah, you can read about it and you can kind of know about it. But when you're actually in it, then there's totally different things altogether, right? And so also, I was 18, my sister was 14, my youngest brother was 12. So all of a sudden that not only I'm their sister, but I'm so their parents. So you gotta learn that, and then you learn a new culture. And when they have an issue coming back from the school, not only try to understand the language of each class, each class challenge, but some people will make fun of my brother's name or vice versa, teasing them, all the stuff. And 12 years old and 14 years is that multiple age. Everything is like you need the parents' guidance on that. So how can 18 years guide a 12 years old and the 14 years old? I need to guide him myself, So that was the one challenge. And then and also try to solving it not only everyday life, how to cook, how to get on the bus, how to do this homework, how to communicate to your teacher, your classmate, and even just try to understand the overall American culture, what it really is about, those kind of thing is a lot of tear, but at the same time, I think without a tear, you will never bring any joy in your life. So that I think that's what make me easier for now, that I was able to learn all that. And now with anything happen around me, or now I'm being a parent because I have a daughter, that I just pretty much free, let her to try a lot of things. And so that she was surprised, like, oh, most of my Asian friends, when they don't get 100 on the test, they cry. I said, why? I said, well, because their parents they feel that they're disappointed on their parents. I said, you don't go to school for your parents, you go to school for yourself. So I think she was in shock that we are so lean on her. But I think at the same time, it enhance while we do things. So hopefully that answers your question.
That definitely did. So did your parents eventually move to Houston with you, or
No.
Hmm.
I'm sorry. No. They're still over there. They still live there. So sorry to interrupt your question.
No, it's completely fine. So do your siblings still live here?
Yeah, my brother live in Austin. He got a job after school, after finish University of Texas. He got a job at Austin, and my sister got a job in Dallas. But then later on, she moved. She got transferred to elsewhere, and then now she's in the Philippines, doing a charity work, things like that. So, and my
Great.
parents still over there, because I think it's hard for them to learn a new language, and also finding the job at that stage of their life. And who won't give us somebody cannot speak English, nor does given such a high pay, right? So the only job they can have and still have is over there. So they still live there, and then they come to visit, and we visit them. So that's how our family get separated many years ago. Otherwise, we're always together, things like that.
So what would you say has made you stay in Houston since you first moved here at 18?
It's because my brother, sister, well, it started with my uncles here, so my parents put up here, and then right after that, because we arrived during the summer, and then after summer, it's school start, right? So we quickly had to put my brother and sister to school. So once we bought a house and go to school, I think it's hard to move. And I don't think my dad will even allow us to move elsewhere, because in their mind, say, oh, you got an uncle over there, and he's thinking, where you want to go? And we probably don't even know where to go ourselves anyway. So we stay here. And then because we stay here, my father want me to stay here as well to taking care of my brother. So as a result, we pretty much stay here. We all finish, my brother finished high school, high school, and then he attended UT, and then my sister at that time, she want to go to UT as well too. So that was the first time that I'm staying in Houston, and the other two was going to University of Texas. Anyway, but Houston always the place for everybody to come to. Like my mom, they'll come to visit, and then my brother and sister, when they done with the semester, they will come home to Houston. So I think in a sense, you gotta have a home base so that everybody can come together, things like that. So I become the point here that everybody come, things like that. So anyway.
Awesome. So we're going to start to transition more into your career. So you graduated with a BFA in interior design in 1987, and then you received your MFA in interior design the year following. So I wanted to ask what made you decide to pursue an MFA in interior design, and or what is the difference between the BFA program and the MFA program?
Yeah. So when I finished my BFA, it was 87. I was lucky enough, got a job right away with 3D International, and they sent me to Philadelphia. So I spent a whole summer outside of Texas working on a fabulous project. And then I was enjoying it very much. But yet at the same time, I really miss design. Design in terms of philosophy, design of comparison, contrast, and things like that. So it took me a while to make that final decision, because financial situation that I was pretty much on my own to pay for all my college bill, all the stuff. And also I think myself, well, I'm the only one got a job upon graduation, and now I'm gonna let go of this job and go back to school. What were they thinking? And I know my parents will never approve of it. But I tell myself, if I don't do it, then I'm afraid that once I start working, I will never take time to get my master's degree. And so I applied it prior to my graduation. Just thought that, just what if, and I got it, and then but however, it created a headache for University of Houston, because they do not have a master program for interior design, so they don't know what to do with me. And then they asked me, you really want to get a master's degree in interior design? I say, yeah, I'm pretty sure. I said, well, we got to kind of put a few classes together, and we had to put a couple faculty together. So can you just kind of rethink about this? But anyway, bottom line is, I let go of my wonderful job, and then I was able to get a scholarship through the faculty. So, and also teaching at U of H at the same time while I'm getting my master's degree. And master's degree really allowed me to further study the interior design. And in general, interior design, people are thinking, oh, well, you decorate a house, you decorate your office, things like that. Believe it or not, we never do a one-time, not even one project has to decorate anything whatsoever. Everything's all based on design basis, like, study architectural, study different well-known designer, their philosophy, things like that. We study space, because interior design is make a space workable for mankind. I mean, imagine your room or a classroom or your living space or the place you go. If they out of order, adjacency is wrong, it make you feel dysfunctional, very uncomfortable. So to do interior design, you really got to study space relationship whatsoever. And that's what the class is all about. And I think U of H have a very good program, because everything is had to do with studying the space. We build model. From the day when we build model, because model give a sense of scale, all the stuff. And then we study relationship, we study the vocabulary. Like, okay, if I want to create space, it's soft. Well, if space is soft, if I have a whole bunch of hard edge, and also, funny corner, they cannot consider it soft. So we really study the vocabulary so that we can making sure that space has its own character of what it really is about. And so I really like that very much. And so I figure, well, what's 2 more years will hurt for me to get my master. But the thing is, I do not have 2 more years, okay? Because I started school late because of my, as you know, my TOEFL test that messed out a little bit. And then also I do not have that kind of budget as well too. And so I said, okay, and I got to finish in 1 year. So I finished my 80 hours of the master program in 1 year. And I of course, I took some summer class as well too. And I also work. So the work consider like, I think there's a special name for it, like special study case or something like that, doing research, things like that. And so at the end, my instructor, for my thesis, they asked me very tough question, like, how is the 5 element has to do with interior space, it compare with American interior design. So I had to write a thesis about more than 4-page long, 4-inch thick. The thesis, do a comparison of East and Western interior design, and then also how the 5 element get applied to the space. And then someone will think, what's the 5 element have to do with the interior design? 5 element really had to do with the interior design, because it had to do with the 4 season, it had to do with the direction, it had to do with the color, it had to do with the shape, because each one is social with all the things. So I do a compare contrasting, and then I also did a sculpture for my master program of interior design. And so basically I took the interior design to the way that it's not our ordinary say, oh, okay, here's a piece of furniture, here is the wall, here is the seating, here is your pillow, things like that. None of those. It's everything is very abstract and philosophical, and also has very deep meaning to it whatsoever. So I think because of that, it gave me a lot of knowledge and experience, and so that I can apply to my interior design when I'm working with the client, as well as right now with my artwork. Is apply all together, all tie in together, and that which require another sidebar conversation altogether. But I think for anyone that want to further advance their education or their anything whatsoever, again, and more knowledge, I really think that we all should get at least a master's degree. I truly believe that anyway, because I really enjoy myself.
Great. So looking at your resume, you have designed a variety of projects in your career when attending college and afterwards. You've worked at Planning Design Research, Ziegler Cooper Architects, Howlich and State Incorporation, and Venture Design. And I believe since 2016, you've worked self-employed at your studio, HH Design Studio. So what would you say are the differences in designing projects for healthcare or corporations or independent contractors? Like I mentioned, it seems like you've done a variety of work in your field. So I wanted to ask, what are the differences in designing different projects for different clients?
I think in general, whether it's corporate or healthcare or consultant, the one thing it never changes is we are designed for the client. It's always client, and walk in the door, they hire you to do their job. And then the first thing you need to do is you need to listen. You listen their requirement, listen to what their need is. And I'm only is the person there to take notes. And then I assembling all the requirement together and produce the final product to a space that they can call themselves home. Home for the office, home for the home, or home for their culture to grow. So I'm only the vehicle. I truly also believe that the designer should not have, a lot of designers no longer have their own signature, but I think we should listen to the client what they want. I mean, in this case, if you hire me to do your office, I need to know all your requirements, and I need to put all the need for you and your staff. But if I just have my personal ego, do everything I wanted, then you're gonna walk in and say, well, what this is about? I asking for this, and you give me X, Y, Z. So listen is very important, and deliver, to the client is very important. So those 3 things those three sectors, are you talking about corporate and healthcare? They have one thing in common, but yet at the same time, they're individual, they are different, because the corporate in the same that based on their lease, some are 3 to 5 years, and some are 10 years. But nowadays, because of COVID, everything's that less than 3 years for the leasing. So it will be such a short time. And if you spend a great deal of money for it, then the money got wasted, because after 3 years, the lease is up. They may not stay there. They're going to the next one. So you got to be judicially pay attention about how much money is delegated and what is their need is. If they're only one for 3 years, you need to design something that is not wasteful and yet functional for them for the amount of time they're going over there. Now, healthcare is different. Healthcare, majority of the time, the project is very long. So it takes a long time to get there. So by the time you finish the programming section of it, and then you got to change the requirement already, because by then, they say, oh, well, this department's growing. We need to add more X month the bed, and we got to adding more this much support. So it's constantly change. But once it got built, they stay there quite a long time. Like Texas Children's Hospital, which is one of my project. That project is so many different floors, and each floor has its own character, because one's for the strictly for this department, that department, but they all need to function doing together and working together as well too. But for them, their length of time is longer, and also the type of material we're allowed to use is different, and also certain color cannot be applied in healthcare, like the yellow and red and some of the color. Those are big no-no, because they translate into patient get dizzy and make patient become scared or all the stuff. So in the sense, design is the same, but then certain application is different. Yeah. And then for me right now, I'm being an independent consultant. I'm basically just working on a project like I do all the time, same as my corporate client. So I do law firm right now, and I have a couple of retail as well, and I have a couple small bookstore here and there, things like that. So basically, design is pretty much the same, because I had to do from beginning to the end. I had to program everything, and then after the programming, I can put it into the drawing. And once it's a drawing, I had to send it out for a contractor to bid on it. And contractor, once they bid on it, I had to take to the city of Houston for permit. And once the permit got approved, I had to send it to the state of Texas for another permit, because they got to have 2 permits altogether. And then once that's all approved, and then we start construction. So I follow construction, and I help client move in. So it's pretty much the same thing I had done before. Only different is that now I'm using my home as my studio, because the rent issue, the less expensive, and also during the COVID, nobody going to the office. So working from home reduce the cost of that, things like that. So
have your interior design projects required more collaboration or individual work? I know you've already touched on this, and it seems like it involves both. So I want to ask, which do you prefer? Do you enjoy collaborating with others in your work, or kind of working by yourself?
Oh, I definitely enjoy cooperating with my team, all the stuff. Especially for interior design, it's hard to work by yourself. Because a project, and I gotta have 2 separate explanation on this one. When a project come in, you have this kind of, for better word, a programming information from the client, and then you kind of put all those puzzle together. Like client say, okay, I need to have 4 office, 6 conference room, how many this. So you put that information on the plan, and making sure that everything is there based on their requirement, and also the adjacency, all the stuff. And then you do rest of the detail, making sure everything functional, all the stuff. So when you're working on all the stuff, you work with your team as well too, because one person cannot possibly do it all. So basically the project, I'm the project designer, I'm project architect. And then I got, depending on the size of the project, I have 1 or 2 people work together, and then they were kind of like, oh, well, how about this? How about this? They will pull couple finish, or working on the electrical plan. One will be working on the lighting plan, and one will be working on elevation, all the stuff. So we constantly had to talk to each other, in order making sure the project is cohesively putting together, because whether it's a lighting or electrical, it all had to be functional with the space itself. I mean, if I put a light, like just in this case, this desk put in the wrong place, it mainly it's because the room situation. I have no choice. That we will not put a light behind people's back, because that way your face is turned black, and then imagine a whole bunch of glare on your computer as well too. So lighting plan and layout, the office layout, they go together. And then also at the same time, I will not put electric out on the opposite side of it, because of if your desk is on this side, why you put on opposite side? So they all have to be cohesively working together. So it's constantly drawing. Not only drawing need to be connect, but also your team had to talk to each other. And through the teaming situation, that we can help one or the other. I mean, we're constantly coaching my team, elevate them to the next level, so they can learn something from the project, and also give them a chance they can also express their idea, because we always present 3 different ideas to the client, and then we can pick from there, things like that. Now, because of the COVID situation, everybody working from home, and it's very difficult for interior design company, because we need to be with the client and with our colleague, collaborating, discussing the project. And then imagine you and I are going to look at the finish or look at the drawing together. Our drawing is like 36 by 42 size, and then now you and I want to go through the drawing just through a computer. It's like, it's total, nightmares, things like that. Anyway, so it's very hard. And even for doing our presentation, we will send a step to the client. Well, client, a lot of time when we present it, we will put it on the conference table, and we cover it up. And only when the client walk in and we discuss a certain item, then we kind of reveal the item, so then for them to see and for us to walk them through it. But when you send a package to them, they open up before the meeting, and they start looking at it like a kid's looking through the Christmas, and they look through everything, and they say, oh, I like this or this, but they don't know what's what and why they like it about, what don't like about, and they already ruin the whole entire stage of how everything go together. And then a lot of time, sometimes they say, well, I don't like this, but they haven't give a chance, like, well, we put this element or certain color here, it's because of your requirement, or sometimes had to do with the ADA, requirement, or sometimes had to do with, further enhance the space for sustainability, things like that. So a lot of time, that without us present, that the project got presented the way that it's getting very, very challenging, things like that. Yeah, so for us, we prefer with the team, with the client, and working together. But for me right now, it's because of I'm a small firm myself. And then, so, I mean, yes, I do have a couple of people, but when we work on a project, they come to the studio, and then we work together, and especially during the discussing the layout stage, we always have to talk, because it's hard to look at the drawing and doing the layout through the computer. I think as much we are in the high-tech technology stage, and eventually going to be, AI, all of that, but I think human one-on-one interaction is still necessary and very important.
For sure. I can see how without human interaction, that process must definitely be very frustrating and challenging, for sure. So moving to the next question, In a statement at the beginning of your resume, you emphasize that you strive to personalize and tailor your interior design for your client, which you've mentioned before, and that you strive to curate personal relationships with your clients. So, when did you learn or decide on these values when it comes to your work? Did you always know you wanted to incorporate these values into your work? Or did you come up with them as you learned from your projects? Yeah.
I think as I mentioned before, that when client walk in, they really looking for help to create a space that they can feel proud and happy with it. And then they have some coming with the idea that what office want to look like, but some coming like, oh, I don't know, but I need this, you know. And then so we always tell ourselves, at least the place I used to work, we all believe that when client walk in, we have to listen to their requirement is. Just like when you go to the doctor, you tell doctor what happened to you, and with their experience, they can diagnose what is best for you, and they give you the best prescription or how to analyze the whole thing. And so we believe that in the sense that to enhance a project or do a better job for the client is that we listen. Once we listen, we are only the vehicle to help them to get there. And we should not put our personal like or dislike into the project, because it will change the character of what the project really need, because the client coming in with their need and their requirement. So we are only the steward to help them to get there. For the better word, we always tell them, we are only your pencil. You tell us what we want, and this pencil will help you to draw it out and send it to the city, got a permit, and it will help you to visualize to your space and make the space a better place for you to live. A lot of designers put their signature on it. In my opinion, that's good for the designer. You make your own statement. Who don't want to have a beautiful project, and who don't want to have the signature, right? But the end of the day, when client walk in, yes, they might hire you for your signature, but yet at the same time, they want their own signature to be the signature. That makes sense, And so we try to be making sure that they are the one is the most important thing, and they are the one that we want to show on the project. We guide them through our knowledge. We guide them through the right thing to do, But I think to help them to see their vision come to fruition, I think this probably is the greatest reward for us and also for the client, because the client feel like, oh, I decide this. I'm the one have this vision, make this office look like this, because I create my own culture. And because of that, I think a lot of project client understand that our philosophy, so we become a long-term flame. Like some of the project, at the beginning we only hire for like little area, and then after a couple project here and there, we end up doing 15 floor for them. And up to this day, even though I'm not with that particular company anymore, I'm still friend with them. And so we become a long-term frame. And then and also when I become on my own, my client also follow me because they like how I approach the project, so they also follow me and they say, okay, I want you to work on my next project in the Dallas area. I want you to work on this project in the Houston area. So all of a sudden now, not only the client relationship, now it's become a friend relationship as well too, because a lot of client that will become knowing one to the other. And then client always say, well, I want to sleep better. I say, hire you, I can make me sleep better, because I don't have to worry about all the detail. I don't have to worry about how the thing put together, because you guys actually listen to my need and you were able to taking care of everything. So I think having that kind of service for the client, I think is very important because they don't have to worry about anything. Just like when you go to a doctor, you don't need to worry about, well, that doctor really going to treat me well, and then they're going to taking care of me. I mean, your whole intent is like, okay, I have issue, I need you to help me to solving it. And so we just only the problem solver to solve the issue for them. That's all.
Yeah, for sure. I guess to better specify or clarify my question, this philosophy that you're talking about, I guess I should have asked this if this philosophy was taught in school, like when you attended U of H, or is it just yeah, like where did it come
I
from?
think school never, at least school from U of H never taught us those kind of things because we really do not working on the actual design project, you know. But however, I think throughout the year, I have learned for all the project walking the door that the successful project and a happy client is the one that we actually respect the client needs, and those are the one turn out to be client feel that they're engaged. You know, some client can be challenged in terms of their need, but if you reason with them about what your design reason behind it, they're accepting it because partly because they don't know, you know. But once they hear you out, so I think listen is very important because if you tell me you need to have 6 different offers and I only provide you 4, well, I'm not listening to you, and why should you come to me for design, right? So it's just like you and I having a conversation, and we say we go for a certain place for lunch, and then we end up going to somewhere else. You're gonna think, what this is about, right? So I think communication, especially for being a designer, we gotta listen, and I think this is what I have learned throughout the year, and I make it to a very personal, and also to my team as well. I say we have to listen, and a lot of time when among ourselves when we work on a project, and then we start doing something else, I say, hold on, what's the client say? And at the end of the day, we'll say, okay, the client asked for this. I mean, yes, this doesn't mean that we don't give client extra other stuff, but if this particular item that is not in it, but we ask ourselves, is that necessary? We do it because we wanted to, or we do it because it's a requirement for the ADA, or we do it it's because of it only enhance the project, you know. But keep that in mind. If we listen to what client want and we get what they wanted, we respect their need. We also make a project fit the budget. And then when you fit the budget, we also important to fit within the scale, the time frame. Like, okay, if we can't even move in 3 months, we meet the deadline, things like that. So I think listen is very important, and that's based upon all the project I done, and that those projects become successful is because the client feel like we listen to them, you know. So
Yeah, that perfectly answered my question. I have 2 more questions before we move more into your art. 2 more questions on interior design. So looking at your resume, you have a LEED or LEED AP credential, which is a credential that distinguishes advanced knowledge in green building. And so this is very interesting because you brought this up kind of in your earlier years with the story with you and your grandparents and the flower. I thought that was really interesting. So I wanted to ask how important sustainability is in your work.
yeah, I think sustainability is very important, especially right now with all the materials so expensive and hard to get. You know, not only just Houston but everywhere. Sustainability is very expensive for the client because even though this is being established for several years now, but to apply to it, it costs. They have a silver level, gold level, you know, you name it. But for each level, it require upfront of how we apply to it. And it costs a lot of money and also take a lot of paperwork. A lot of time client don't want to do it because money issue. And also think about right now, money is even harder right now for the client to spend, certain dollar for the project. But it doesn't mean that we should not do the right thing for the client. Like, for example, simple little thing. And I always tell my staff that even if we pick a material, majority of material in the office space is your flooring, right? Flooring will be in this case be carpet, okay, or some sort of tile, things like that. Making sure the product is green, is recyclable, okay, and it's healthy for environment. It will not cause any issue for any detox whatsoever, and also within the 500-mile of Houston area, because though you get a point for the green sustainability, things like that, and then also make client feel good that, oh well, I participate the LEED, LEED, and I'm a part of green, I'm part of the solution, or even just pick a piece of furniture, for example. Is that furniture made in the United States? And then the furniture, the subsurface is using the right spray, and they all apply to everyday clean air, and so those are very important things. I mean, yes, there's some manufacturer have less expensive material and less expensive product, but and once again, I'm not because say that less expensive is bad. It's just like ask yourself why this product A and product B, there's a difference in there. Making sure to pick the right solution and right product for your application. And not only that, you done your duty as a designer to pay attention to the environment, to the client's living space. And even client doesn't want to participate the LEED credit, you indirectly, you already put the first step, the first seed in their environment, help them, educate them to do the right thing already. And so if we all do our part, even just 1/16 of it, 1/16 plus 1/16, eventually we are working all together as big in a big pile of moving this LEED forward, And the only thing people right now, we are not moving forward as fast, is part because of it costs money, it costs time, and also not very many people really know what really is about. So without knowing what it's about, why should I participate? But at the same time, we need to educate. That's why our designer, we constantly having a continuing education, and we need to meet our requirement as well too. So this is very important from us to the client, and hopefully client will take it to their everyday, their own life as well too. So
Yeah. This is the last question for this section before we move into art. From your observation, what is the interior designer community like in Houston?
I think community in Houston overall, I think every firm, everyone try to do the right thing for the project. That is moving to the right direction using the green product, all the stuff. But it is a challenge because of the budget, because of it takes a lot of time to apply for it. And if a project is only 3 years old, or only a client want to stay for a certain space for 3 years, LEED is last thing they're going to worry about. But we cannot do that just because it's only 3 years lease. We still got to respect anything we can do. We still need to do it. Try not to do something that need to be teared down for 3 years and then become a waste in field, and then call it out in a drawing. Say, okay, on your demolition plan, this material need to be recycled. Don't just get dumped to the landfill for no reason. I think simple notes in the drawings make a huge difference in there for every item to be recycled. Okay, and the landfill will not be a headache, things like that. And also ask yourself, do we really necessarily use foreign countries exotic species? Can we get it from United States? Things like that. Just ask yourself, yes. I mean, who don't want to have the best project out there? But the question is, use the product at the right place, right time. And I think Houston being in the South, I think in general, some of the projects hard to move along because people just feel like, no, I don't want to apply for that. Is that necessary? We are not caught up yet, you know, and compared with East Coast and West Coast, they are more advanced. They have a lot of rules already established, and then their requirements even more harder, things like that for project to be completed. And I think we need to do that in Houston so that we can raise our level because it's all our job. I mean, at the end of the day, when this earth is not green anymore, we cannot stay here anymore. So it's everyone's job. And I think it's up to the designer, if we talk about interior design, it's up to the designer that do our part and educate our client and make a Houston to be a next place that people think, oh, well, Houston is on this design edge. You know, they are there. Not only they have good design, good building, but they also respect the environment, things like that. We only can be as good if we apply ourselves. The only way to apply ourselves is really we actually do it. So that, especially right now, other city people start moving in now. I mean, California, all the office moved to Texas, especially Houston, right? And also a big firm have moved around, you know, re-sign their lease, you know, in Houston again. Or more reason we need to bring up to the level, you know, so that way we can be as good as East or West Coast, or even better than, you know, another country. I mean, after all, America is always on the leading edge of something. So why can't we be the one to do that? So anyway.
I see. So moving into your art, so in addition to your very impressive interior design career, you also have extensive experience in displaying your art in various exhibits around Houston and other places in Texas, and have upcoming exhibits in places such as New York and Spain, which is really exciting. And so more recently, you were hosted by Heidi Vaughn Fine Art and held an exhibit that contained your artistic work, such as mixed media objects, paper collages, sculptures, jewelry, and paintings. And so I just want to ask you, what was this experience like for you as an artist?
I think it was a good experience in terms of for people to see what interior design can do, as well as for them to understand that the art has really no boundary, because when you design certain thing, and design require you know, drawing, require putting things together, and so in a sense, interior design and art is really merging into one. A reason I say that is because the type of the artwork I'm doing is paper collage. It's abstract, geometric paper collage, and paper collage is using a variety of different shape and texture of the paper and building things together and kind of assembling together, and then I draw it on top all the stuff. It's pretty much a problem solving for my interior design business. Like, you know, client need to have this information, need to have this requirement, and I kind of assembling all the element together into the final drawings, and that become a solution for the project. So in a sense, any collage I do, it is a different element of the requirement putting together. And at the end of the day, it's balance, because for anything looks beautiful, you need to have balance. So it's not too much a certain thing, not enough a certain thing, and then create also having the layer to enhance the artwork stuff. So also the drawing is not very big. So it is if you just stand from a distance and kind of passing through it, you lost all the detail. And then the intent is for people come closer, look at the drawing, and then they can look at the collages, and because it's abstract, so they can have their own final conclusion based on their experience and say, oh yeah, I feel that I immersed in cherry blossom, I immersed in this, and especially after talking to the visitor, they come to look at the drawings, they say, oh yeah, I see that. I'm in the Bluebonnet field, and I see it in the sunflower, I immerse in it all the step. My drawing is not intended to be large so that you can see it from 3 foot away from it. I want people coming in, and then once they look at the drawing, they can see, oh well, there's a lot of detail in there. One of the visitors said, oh, I thought that was print, but they are not print. They are individually handmade paper and put them together. And then also people say, oh well, the color was so vibrant. I say, yeah, the colors from nature. Like if it's sunflower, I picked the sunflower, that yellow color and with a green leaf, I picked the nature color. Every single thing in there is nature's color. And then people say, oh well, it's so bright, so bold, so and bright and bold is good, but I don't want misleading people thinking that being flashy, I'm saying that is not intent. It's really color from the nature, and also it's intent to tell people that nature is beautiful, like Pink Lake. Pink Lakes, I really have that pink and red color together. Okay, it's really tell nature is beautiful, but if we don't take good care of it, nature will not be there forever. So each one is abstract mimicking of nature. It's a map, a map of human travel of the certain destination. I don't only use the color to mimicking the nature, but I using the line and shape and color to tie everything together. And line, shape, and color is basically what we learn in a design school and what we do for interior design. But yet at the same time, it's applied 100% in my collage. So in a sense, interior design, the design background and knowledge I have versus the collage, they are all merged in one. And also all my drawing was able to transform into a rug as a tapestry. I won a national open call competition for interior designer, and they actually literally turned my 8.5 by 11 small drawing and into the 5 foot by 7 foot rug. And they interpreted very, very good. It's very did a very good job for it. So I was very impressed by. So what I'm trying to say is that there's no limitation in terms of the art, right? Art really can be anything. And I also have mobile in there too. And I also have sculpture in there. So it's really kind of using what I have do every day for interior design, the space and the different element, different detail. And then I kind of transform into the collage at the same time. And the mobile, and especially the collage, is using the 5 element. Some allow people to touch it. Once they touch it, there's a sound of it. So it's kind of recall that, okay, everything we do, it has a effect on our surrounding, things like that. So hopefully everybody enjoyed it and engaged of why I'm trying to say. At the end of the day, is try to using design can be the tool to help us kind of engage with what's surrounding us, and can be the solution for it as well, you know. But by bringing the awareness of respect the nature, because nature won't be here forever if we don't taking care of it. And then now it's up to us make a difference, things like that.
Yeah. Would you say that your ethnic background influences your designs or art in any way? Have you created any art with the influence of your Chinese background?
Yeah, I think so, in a sense, because the five element, is from Chinese philosophy or nature five basic element, right? And then those five element, water, wood, fire, earth, metal, they really work together, and then they need to be that particular sequence. I mean, imagine too much water, we have flood. Too much fire, we have forest fire in California area, right? So everything had to be just right. And without the water, then the wood, the basic tree or any plant cannot grow. And without anything growing, then we cannot create fire. So each one need to be in the right sequence, right order, and right balance, so that nature can be balanced. So those are the things that I was as a kid from my grandmother. And then also those are the things that it applied to four season and direction, because north is water, south is fire, and then each one also has a color too. So I think they all tie together, and then also it applied to interior design as well too. So I think in a sense, subconsciously, I do use those without thinking about that. Oh, I was using a five element, things like that.
Do you feel like you have a responsibility to fulfill as an Asian artist?
Yeah, I think so. I think every artist or designer, whatever, I think we all have responsibility for everything. Whether it's a designer or artist, or even just writer or social worker, I think we all have a responsibility. And I think doing the right thing and is important, because I think, especially coming out of COVID right now, we all need to work together. And our responsibility is even greater than ever before, because sooner we can be respectful of one or the other and working together, then we can quickly back to pre-COVID condition. Because right now economy is really bad, and everything is expensive, and then we still got war going on with in Russia area. I think that just we got to get this thing back to normal, and then so that way our newer generation that we all can have better life to live on. I mean, we all can share this piece of pie, but in order to share the pie, we all have to give in to something, and then whatever we do, whether big and small, they are equally important. As long as we work on that first step. So being an artist, I think, is even more responsible for it, because we can express the idea through the art, and art is a storytelling. It is, I believe in storytelling. It's like telling a story, what's it really about, and what I'm trying to convey. As much as a writer try to write, right? They have convey the idea, things like that. So I think being a artist is very important, make a difference to the society, things like that.
Do you ever feel artistic burnout? And if so, how do you overcome it?
Well, right now, I hope I never get to the stage, because I got too much project in my head right now to do, and I got excited on every little thing, which could be bad. I need to focus on. I like right now I'm working on the jewelry, you know, and design certain thing. And then meanwhile, I got collage. I already work on 3 different big pieces of the collage, you know, for my next project already, even though I don't have a audience like who I'm going to show it to, you know, but I just have this idea constantly. And then I'm so afraid I lost my idea. So I constantly have a notebook here, you know, I just constantly draw in there and I write the notes in there so that I can quickly get the idea across and then can produce on the paper, things like that. So hopefully I will never get to the stage, you know. So far I haven't. And so because so far right now I do not have enough time to finish the things that I want to do, especially all the design, all the drawings, and all the collage I want to do, things like that. So
Real quick, from your observation, what is the artist community like in Houston?
I think in general, because I have a show in different city this past year, and I feel like Houston's pretty good. I went to a couple city, and I talking to other artists. I realized Houston, we are very good. We have variety different gallery, right, and museum. We have the best, you know, whole wide world, a museum of fine art here. And not only that, the Latin community also they have their own, you know, museum, and they have their own Niagara exhibition all together. So I think by far we are a whole lot better than other city. And I think if we all can work together in terms of like art is art. Why necessary have to say, oh, this is Latin art, this is black art, this is Asian art, blah blah blah. I mean, if you all want to enjoy beauty, does beauty really have a boundary? You know, I think there's a whole bunch of room for everybody, and we all can enjoy it. We all, every artist should and can and will have the opportunity to express themselves. So I think Houston overall is good, you know. Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. We're coming to the concluding questions regarding your interior design and artwork before we get into family. So the next question is, do you think of yourself primarily as an interior designer or an artist, or do you just see yourself as both?
I'm pretty sure. I'm thinking myself both. I think one thing for sure is because I went to school for study interior design. I really liking it. So once you're passionate about a certain thing, I don't think you would never want to exit from it. So I think every time when I go certain places, I say, oh, this can be designed this way. You know, my mind's already start thinking all the stuff. So I think once you're interior designer, you're forever interior designer, in my opinion, you know. And also I look at things in a 3-dimensional way. And the 3-dimensional way I translate it into my 2-dimensional drawings, things like that. So I'm constantly working on both at the same time. And I'm glad I have that privilege, because some artists, they only being artists. And I think having both only enhance my work. And I think that's why it's so easy for me to work on the sculpture, because I'm designer, I design the space. I'm looking at the world in a 3-dimensional space. So it's easy apply to my sculpture, and also easy work on my collage. It has a more 3-dimensional effect, things like that. So I'm constantly working on both at the same times.
Right. Going off of that, you definitely have answered this, but maybe if you could elaborate on this question. Do your 2 careers, both as an interior designer and artist, overlap, or have you transitioned from one career to another? It seems like you're constantly working on both, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts reiterated.
Yeah. Well, see, I'm pretty sure I'm constantly working on both. The reason I say that is because even early year when I'm working on interior design, I'm also participate a lot of open call or visual art competition, or even just exhibition in New York, all the stuff. The reason for that is that I just love to draw. I like to draw things, and for interior design, we draw on the flat surface with a three-dimensional world, and then we constantly combine things to make every detail work. So that gave me the opportunity to work on the collage. And I think it's partly because of when I work in my master's degree, that building the model versus doing the drawing is day and night difference in there. And then that gave me the opportunity to adapt the world of collage. Because one day my teacher walked in the studio and say, well, heck, this shows a lot of good looking drawing over here, all your design idea. Sure be nice to turn into some product. I said, yeah, that would be good. Anyway, and so that started my first collage making, and also greeting card. So I sold 300 greeting card first year before I out of school, and I won the international competition. It was got published, all the stuff. So I guess ideally I'm constantly working on the both at the same time, and I enjoy very much doing both at the same times. So hopefully that answers your question.
For sure, it totally did. What are your insights on Asian or Asian American representation in the interior design scene or the art scene?
I think interior design, as I said before, client walk in, I try to give them their need and to design a space what is best suit for their culture. Whether or not I apply to Asian philosophy or not, I don't think I intended or not intended at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Because the principle is there. Principles of the design and design philosophy is there. So I don't think I will be subconsciously say, oh, I applied this Asian philosophy in here. You know what I'm saying? And the same way for the paper collage. Collage right now, just because I love the topographic view of the earth. So everything is topographic, this topographic that, and so really it's a map, right? So map in a sense, if you look in the map, there's a lot of texture and color and geographic shape, all the stuff. So if you're gonna say, okay, that's probably 5 element, then in that case, okay, has an Asian philosophy to it. But if you think about other artists do nature too, can I say they're doing the philosophy of Asian? I think it just all depends on what you want to interpret, and I try to, I don't think I intentionally want to say, oh, this is the Asian, I just do it just because, oh, what I see around us. And but mainly because I'm very concerned about climate change. I'm very concerned about this beauty in no longer stay with us. So I want to have something that to capture that beauty at the current time, but yet at some time bring up the awareness that, hey, you want to see this beautiful thing inside Empire or Jacob Well or Pink Lake, we got to taking care of it. That's all that is. And then would that apply to Asian? I think it's a little bit, so it's up to the viewer to answer that.
For sure. Coming down to the last 2 questions of the section before moving into your family, what have been your proudest accomplishments in your career thus far? And what do you hope to do in the future?
I think for interior design, that I was able to design a table with my senior designer for Economic Summit there's the table for all the nation get together, and then they're under one roof, and for them to sign a whole bunch of important document, and take place at Rice University as well too. So I'm glad that I was able to be part of that special historical moment, and I was able to find a project for the firm, and working with senior designer in the firm at that time, and I was able to come up with the idea, being part of the process, and the design process really is merged two different kind of wood together, and the whole idea is try to merge all the idea together, whether it's from the east or west, because it's economic summit, so that was a great project. And also there's many other projects throughout my career. There's one project, it's called VTOL. It is combine science and art together, and the company believing state of the art of how approach to the space. So basically the entire project, everyone is in their own office, but the office had no wall. Basically, there's a wall divide between my office to your office, but to enter the room, that does not have that wall over there. So by all means, there's no wall on one side, there's definitely no door. So everybody walking in to their space. And client believe that for them to work together, they need to have an open area, but yet at the same time have their privacy at the same time. And then there's 2 floors, so there's interconnect stair in there. So because they are the geology-ish, so I use a lot of slate to represent the nature, and also represent the earth they study. And then I use the cable and a whole bunch material that was used in their research combined together. And then that become a stair itself for them to interconnect themselves. So there's art and there's also science, because in order to make a stair work, you require, very carefully calculated. Otherwise, stair cannot stand up by itself, things like that. So I think that could be my really a big project of collage into the space without knowing I was working in a collage at that time. And then also they won a special award for it, because when I was hired for Ziegler Cooper, I was told by the principal, say, we haven't won interior design award for many years. I want you to lead a studio to be able to won a couple project. And then we want making sure that our firm back on the map again, So we won that project, and for the best interior design, things like that. And also that was right before I had my daughter. I was like 8 months pregnant or something. And a hot summer day, I had to go to a job site and hand pick every individual piece of the slate and put on the ground, and because that particular material, because slate from nature is inconsistent because it's coming from nature, but we want to have a little bit kind of better control of the color, how it flow. So the contractor said, we are not going to take the responsibility. You need to come. I said, you're kidding me. And I was 8 months pregnant with a big stomach and a hot summer day, and out in the factory. Oh, I was like, this is killing me, But I think see the result of it. It's very breathtaking. And then the client actually said, you really combine the science and art together for us. So I think clients happy, and then by all means, as a designer, I think I did a good job for them. So that's the great moment in my life, able to work on those projects. And of course, for the art, I was able to. There's an open call last year, talking about try to protect our spring water, and so I was using my collage, try to save our spring water. And so that the collage was selected and it turned into a kite. So to fly over to over the blue sky of Texas last year in Austin. And then so that become a travel expedition around the United States. So this year, right now, it's in San Marcos, and it's still the kite is still flying outside, and then now take it to inside the San Marcos Library for people to view. So I think bringing awareness of what's happening in our environment is important, especially water. Think about, we drink water every day. Think about our spring water get damaged, and then that means our health got damaged. So I'm glad I'm able to be part of the, part of the open call, and then it can be bring awareness for the our spring water. So hopefully I can do more. I really want to do more about our environment, so that way we can have a clean world to live in, things like that.
Sounds fascinating. So thank you so much for answering all these questions about your career. It's all because you've just had such a long list of things that you've accomplished in your career. So I just had to ask about all of them. It was also interesting. So moving into family, if you feel comfortable sharing, when and how did you meet your husband?
I met my husband my first year around United States. We arrived United States in summertime, and then so once we arrived, we gotta learn English, right? And then so a friend of mine said, oh well, we need somebody working at Wendy's because we need some help. And then I said, well, okay, this sounds kind of cool. Yeah, if I can go to Wendy's to work a little bit, I still can get some money out of it. It's not a bad idea, right? And maybe I can practice my English. So I asked my father if that'd be okay. He said, well, as long as you don't mess up your grade, that should be okay. Anyway, so there's a one weekend. I normally work on weekend only. Yeah, because Monday through Friday I had to go to school. So that one particular weekend I had to work on the weekend because the schedule got changed. And I was in the kitchen, clean all the stuff, and how kitchen in Wendy's, and stuff. And someone say hello to me in Chinese, and I don't recall anyone in the staff. This is Chinese. They are all pretty much good old, American stuff. So I turned around, and obviously I didn't see my husband, because in my mind, like someone said Chinese, so I just kind of being silly about turn around looking for somebody is Chinese. I didn't see it, so I went back to work, and someone said it again, So after 3 hello, I'm here stuff, I realized that was my husband say hi to me at that time. But at that time we're just a friend, And they said, oh, my name's this. I said, oh, okay. And that was the end of the conversation. Didn't go any further than that because I wasn't looking for boyfriend or friend or anything. I just like, okay, And then besides, my dad made it very strict, until you finish the school, you're not allowed to have dating anyone, blah, 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 all the Chinese culture, all the stuff. So it never occurred to me to think about it. And then that evening when I get home, I got a phone call. And it was my husband calling me. I said, oh, by the way, I don't want to scare you, but I just want to let you know, I'm who and who from work. And I just, I found out your name and phone number through the employee list. I said, who think that? But anyway, that was, but let's don't go to the conversation. And but said, oh, however, I give you my phone number and my address, and put it in the mail car and right in front of your garage, And so so if later on, if you have time, we can get together. I think you got to be crazy. I said, no, thank you. And I said I was very angry at that time, And but however, I get the stuff out of the house because I don't want anything outside, Anyway, and then of course he never give up, He's still calling me, all the stuff. And that's so funny. It's like, it's not very nice of you calling me. I don't know who you are, So bottom line, we start with very wrong foot altogether, But later on, when we kind of have other opportunity to get together at work, all the stuff, I think, okay, he's not that bad. And then because we just arrived in United States, and I don't know a lot of things. And then so when my brother and sister needed help, I got nobody to ask question. So I started asking, say, well, my brother had to do this at school. What do you think? Where should I go? Where should I take her? Take him? All the stuff. And then he said, oh, well, have you tried this? And then he also know I just learned how to draw. He said, do you want me to take your brother and sister to go there? To go to library or go to the other places to do the research, things like that. And I'm thinking, well, how safe is it to go with this stranger, all those stuff? I said, well, it's okay. To give me an address and I can look at the map and figure out all the stuff. But anyway, through the different things that he helping out with my brother and sister and coaching my brother and sister and me for English or stuff. So we can know one to the other. And that's how we met. We met at Wendy's because he speak Chinese to me and he was nice enough. And that's how we met. But unfortunately, my parents wasn't approve of this kind of relationship because it's like, that he's American. No way, you're Chinese. What were you thinking? And I think, well, and I said, well, we're just friends. At the beginning, we're just friends. And I said, well, friend or not, no, you're not allowed to have. Like, oh, great. Anyway, and then, but then our friendship becomes deeper, and then, so we dated for 7 years. And then he said, well, I think we should get married. I said, my parents disapprove of it. No way we can get married. I said, no, we should get married, all the stuff. And to me, and that's why it took us 7 years, took me a while to say, okay, we get married. So I told her, okay, when I finish school, I will get married. So so I literally get married the day after I graduated from my master's degree. So I finished my first degree. He said, okay, we can get married now. I said, no, I want to get my master. And then and then he said, well, how long is it gonna take? I said, I don't know, 80 hours, you tell me. And then so I finished in 1 year, not because of him, because of money situation. So I finished it, and May the 14th is a graduation. May the 15th is our wedding. So a couple of days ago, we just celebrated our 35-year anniversary. We've been married for 35 years and dated for 7 years. Yeah, so that's our story about my husband. Anyway, he's an engineer, so which is another extreme of art, because the engineer is like engineer, everything's like no, things like that. So it's the opposite of it, everything. So it's a miracle that we survived to each other this long because it's such extreme things like that. So anyway, hopefully that answered your question that you asked me about my husband, things like that.
It totally did. Yeah, that was so fun to hear. So you've mentioned that you have one daughter, and so did she express any artistic interest?
No, she know how hard she saw mommy how hard they work to make a little bit of money of it, because interior design, we make minimum wage. I mean, you'll be surprised how much we make. Only until the later on I become an associate principal, I got huge pay increase, and then also amount of project I bring to the office. So I was able to get very reasonable pay for that. In general, interior designer, we don't get paid as much, even though we do a lot of work on that. It's just because of society, how we view things and things like that. And then so no, she liked to draw, and I think she's very good at it. But I don't think she put her heart into it. And I think she's more interesting in different thing, which total okay with me. We basically let her do whatever she wanted, and she ended up chosen the field of study business. So she went to Macomb study business, and so she did pretty well for herself as a financial advisor, things like that. So
Does your daughter speak Mandarin, Chinese, and or Taiwanese at home, or is it primarily English?
she is capable of reading, writing, and speaking Chinese, and with a few Taiwanese words here and there. Mainly because ever since she's kids, we sent her to Chinese school, so she can write and read and talk Chinese. And she enjoyed chat with my parents when they're here, and when they're not here, she would pick up the phone, chat with them. So she enjoyed that part of it. And then at home, we try to practice, but a lot of time because my husband cannot speak any Chinese words, so he feel left out. And then my daughter comment was that, well, Daddy, if you learn, you will not feel left out. He said, oh, it's too hard for me to learn, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, so we don't speak as much. But when my parents are around, we speak more because my parents cannot speak much English, so that she can practice more. But at home, only when she want to say something about Daddy, and then she will say to me in Chinese so that Daddy cannot hear her, I'll understand our conversation, things like that. So.
Do you still practice Chinese traditions or holidays in your household?
Yes, well, I try to. At least I feel like it's my responsibility. I want my daughter to know who she is and her culture, things like that. So not only we celebrate the Lunar Chinese New Year, but every holiday that I can remember of, I try to introduce her as well too. And also for her to attend a Chinese school, after the school program, they also have a celebrate a holiday. So further for her to engage what's going on. And that way she will know, oh, well, the reason I eat, this particular dessert or the particular food is to celebrate a certain holiday, things like that, And interesting enough that as much American she is, all the food that she like to eat is all the Chinese food anyway. And then she also talk to her friend in Chinese every so often, and I think 99% of her friends is all Chinese, so it's kind of interesting anyway. But so.
Sounds great. We're going to move into our last section. I just have a few last section before our concluding questions. I just want to ask a few things about your community involvement. So you are or have been involved with several organizations such as the International Interior Design Association and CREW, to list a few. Can you speak on your experiences with these organizations or others?
Well, for the interior design, that's really is the organization for all the registered interior designer and architect that the organization try to enhance the project, and also incoming designer just out of school, so that they feel like what society had done for interior design business. And also there's a big range of the project and the history about all the well-established designer around the globe, not only just the United States, and so there's always constantly events going on in the national level. And also like next month there's always a product introduced at the NeoCon, and it's called it's in the Chicago, and it happened summer once a year, and only strictly put under the interior design business. So all the product under one roof, you will see what the latest innovative product materials out there, things like that. So I think the interior design IIDA stuff is very important, not only for the designer at a different level altogether, and also bring the world much closer because of through the design, because just like I said before, design had no boundary. It really is like it's all, you can design everything, furniture, desk, space, drapery, you name it. And then for CREW, and the reason I participate that one is because of for interior designer, we also need to know what's going on in the market, because without a client, we cannot build things for the client. So if when there's no project coming in, we have no business. So we really need to lean on each other So joining the crew is more for the commercial real estate executive woman, and so we get together once a month, exchange information, see what is coming up, and we also have a very well-known speaker to talk about what's going on with the market. And that was more than 10 years ago that they already predict what's going to happen in the Galleria area, the master plan, and who is coming, who is going, and why is that? And the trend is already established, and they have went to deep research about what is coming up for the next couple of years, things like that. So the knowledge is there, and it's also very impactful because that it trickle down to our economy. It also trickle down to what type of thing we should design for it, because in the future it's all Hispanic during the particular study. Then if we don't have something it's more to their culture or their language or their kind of look, they will not come. So you got to know your market in order to design a well healthy environment for them at the same time, whether it's in the future is Hispanic or Asian whatsoever. We need to know that what the information. And so drawing crew is part of the enhance of the interior design and also understand the market at the same time. So I think every designer, I think they should at least participate one or two on those kind of things, because one sector is always related to the other. There's no such a thing as, one business only strictly here without any separation, things like that. So,
Have you gotten involved with the Chinese community in Houston?
yeah, Chinese is mainly it's because of part is my daughter go to school. And then so there's always activity going on. There's always not only the holiday activity, but also the special event. And I think in a sense it bring the family together. You also know another family, because I do not know very many Chinese family here. And then my brother and sister now live here because one in Dallas, one in Austin, so it's even harder. So having that Chinese culture thing, and for parents able to coaching with the kids and volunteer our time to helping out, because they constantly they have a the Independent Day flag ceremony stuff like that. So my daughter was there, raised the flag and Chinese Taiwan's flag, for the whole ceremony, all the stuff. So parents had to participate and help them, and also put things together for them, and also have a speech. My daughter always in the speech, and then they always had like a different holiday speech, and so she had to practice her Chinese, had to speak in Chinese, and then also give a speech, all the stuff. So involved with other parents, involved with the kids, involved with the community, all the stuff. And I think in a way it's good, because when parents make a lead, that I think the kids can follow, and hopefully more and more people can do it like that. I think if I don't have a kid, I think chance out I probably doesn't involve as much, but because of her that I was able to involve furthermore. And then talking about the dance, she was in the dance for all the Chinese dance stuff. So we do a lot of events, and also practice, especially for the holiday. She will outperforming every single places. I mean, one New Year, Chinese New Year, I think she went to 8 different places, and we had to change outfit in between. It was very challenging, and also she always have a performance at Miller Outdoor, and also at the different theater, things like that. And we always joking, I don't think I ever celebrate Mother's Day for the first 15, 18 years of her life, because they always performs around Mother's Day. I don't know why that particular weekend. So yes, we involve a lot of activity, and we were very busy from one car to the next one, all the stuff. And then sometimes it's with 3 kids behind us with her classmate, and all change eating food in the back, while we were driving, take them to the Miller, or you're taking to the next places, and then they had to do the practice run or do the homework in the car. Yeah, so yes, so having all said that, yes, there's a lot of Chinese community activity that it take place while when my daughter growing up, things like that. So
What do you see for the future of the Chinese community in Houston and further in America?
I think we have gone to the stage that most of our parents getting old, and then when they get old, the us we're busy working because we also raise family, things like that, or some of us we live in different states, things like that. And I see the Chinese community has a lot of older folks over there, and some of their kids is not with them. It's not by choice, it's because some had to go to work in a different state, or they had to take care of their own kids, all the stuff. So we need to figure out a way that those older folks, but not only just Chinese community, the community in general, that we need to figure out a thing for them to do, and feel that they still engage with society. I think for them feel old, not only physically feeling old, but when they feel like not needed, not important, they will make them feel old even faster. And it would be nice to see that the kids can have some sort of activity, visit them, like even just a drawing class, go and say, oh, today we're going to draw this, and have them have a drawing, or the cello class have a performance for them to hear. I'm sure they would be love to hear someone play music for them, or especially the song they grew up with. And I think that part of memory will then feel like for them feel young, or even to have some sort of dance stuff. We all can learn together, so that they can gracefully have their retirement age, and then feel like even without their kids nearby, they still have someone that the community is still welcome them and give a sense of warmth. So I would like to see more of the youngster, or anyone we can put something together for them, and we always do it together. I'm pretty sure I'll just make it up right now. Rice University can have some sort of events take place for this, and then everybody rotated, or even different school rotated, something like that. We all do something together, and it's hard to do the first time, but once we have something going, and then I think everybody get enjoyed, and pretty soon this organization of the connect of the helping elderly will be very, very healthy environment for them as well too. I mean, even for them to do some origami, or drawing and listen to music, who don't want that, right? Do something that, think about it then as our grandparents, because someone really is our own parents, and have something for them to do. They will feel young, or even help them to go to places, or help them to take a walk. I'm pretty sure that they want to go out the street and see the sunshine instead of recoup every day in their lonely apartment, things like that. So anyway, just food for thought.
So you've lived in different areas of Houston since you moved here. Right now you're living in Sugar Land. You've attended the University of Houston, and things like that. So in your observation, how has Houston changed in the time that you've lived here?
Well, I think the traffic is getting worse. I mean, this goes without saying, right? I mean, the week my daughter was home, which one was it? A couple weeks ago. She just got back from Norway, and then we had to pick her up. Oh no, she Uber in, and the next day we had to take her to haircut from Bel Air to get a haircut to Houston, where my gallery is. It took us more than 1 hour, almost 2 hours to get there, and that's ridiculous for the traffic. And then we had to take her to airport. It took us 2 hours to get home. That is getting so bad. But that is a problem that require, master planning, how to do a thing better, I think that. But in general though, there's a lot of school got built, right? And then also a lot of museum. I mean, look at our museum and find out it's, we have new one, and also a lot of store popping up, yes, after COVID, a lot of business got closed at, at the same time too. But I'm pretty sure that take in time that, a lot of business can come back again, So I think it's just like a cycle, go up and down. And then we are in the down of the certain thing because we just got out of COVID. But a lot of things is growing, and hopefully that we only can grow into a better community. And especially for the Houston, it's such a important place. And we rank top 10, So we gotta make our place, giving more people to attract, have more business over here, and bring out the culture of the multimedia in the culture, as well as the fine arts and the science. And we have best in a hospital in the world. People come to us for help. So we need to enhance our community and make it even better. So I think we are in a good place, and Houston is growing, not to mention on top of that, so.
Yeah, for sure. Coming to our last question before the concluding questions, since the COVID-19 pandemic, there's been an uptick in anti-Asian hate crimes. And so do you have any thoughts you would like to share on that?
Well, I think people do think have certain reason, when they get angry, frustrated, they want solution, they want some change. And some people do it better than others, express themselves of their anger. But in general, I don't think violent or abuse language really can solve anything. It's only make matter worse. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that Asian community that we should not be silent all the time, not to speak out of what we believe in. But culture had taught us that not to cause trouble, not say things. Those are all good. But when the time is right, we also need to speak out what we believe in, because we have as much equal right as other as well. But in the big picture, I think we all can express our idea and our frustration and our right. And the freedom of speech is matter how we take it. I think sometimes people take it too far, because everything, even though freedom of speech, there's still there is a boundary of not to cross, of hurting another mankind. It doesn't matter which race that is. So I think we need to respect each other, and then using gun or violent or verbal abuse language, it really doesn't go anywhere. It's only create more angry, and I think it's important having the a good education from home, because a lot of times what we do, we are miniaturize our own parents. If we teach our kids that we are all equal, we all need to be kind to each other, and there's no such thing as a this race, that race, then there should not be an issue, but only if we don't taught our kids right, then our kids will have biased opinion toward others, especially for Chinese kids, the first day we learn how to write all the famous philosophers say, great philosophers taught us from day one. From the day we were born, mankind is kind. It's kind. We are all kind. We are all, we there's no such thing as a bad people. We are all good people. So if we are all good people, then why would be a violence? We should ask ourselves, why would it be? It's because of friction. Friction is because of the expectation. It's because of point of view. It's okay we have different point of view, but the question is the point of view, how it was raised, how it was take place, how we're going to solve it from here. You know, we are come here really problem solving. We are not come here to create problem. So we just need to how to live one with the other, things like that.
Thank you for your answer. So coming down to our concluding questions now, do you identify as Chinese or Chinese American?
Yeah, I saw that question. I was asking myself that one too, you know. I think I probably still identify myself as a Chinese and no, nothing bad about being American. I'm very proud that I can be part of American as well too. But I think because I'm the first generation of immigrant, you know, if I'm the second generation, I think I can put myself into more American. But because I'm still rooted with Taiwan, you know, and I grew up over there, and my English is still bad, you know, I still have very strong accent. I don't think I can ever make myself to be American, you know. I mean, I think American allow me to have a freedom of thinking. You know, I can be free to express myself, both my art and my interior design. I can talk about any subject I want to. I treasure that freedom, but indeed, I think I will be forever Chinese, no matter what.
What are some of your favorite hobbies that are outside of your work?
Well, I love travel. You know, before we have kids, we travel 3 times a year. We travel on anniversary. We travel around our birthday or our each other's birthday, and then we travel during the holiday. So we have 3 major holiday, 3 major travel. We go all the way to Australia, you know. We go to Japan. I mean, you name it. And we travel all the time. And then, but because after that we have our daughter, then it's hard to travel because school. We cannot travel in May. You know, I mean, still in school, things like that. So we slow down a little bit, and then finally she finished college, we were able to travel a little bit more, and then COVID hit, we slowed down. But before COVID though, we were Alaska, and before that we were in Mediterranean, all the stuff. So we're about ready back to go traveling again. So I cannot wait. I enjoy travel. So
Are there any local spots that you recommend in Houston?
well, I would say the Japanese garden, not far from Herman Park. I think that's a good place to visit. In compare with they are not exact what Japanese garden, you know. I mean, but at least you can get a sense of it without feel like travel to all the way to Japan, you know. But I think they did a very good job of, you know, pursue that kind of Zen, quiet, you know, and peaceful, all the stuff. You know, you see the palm, you see the fish, things like that. So I think it's a good place, you know. And I think there's a lot of places in Texas, like but you know, we talk about Houston here. Houston, what else? That one's good. And also the another park or garden, why we call it, right in front of the Museum of Science. And it's a name for it. You know, it's just reason like it finished designing a couple of years ago, and in the middle it go up to it, you know, and the waterfall coming down. I think they did a very good job for it, and all the greenery start growing now. And then people also have a private events over there, So I think that's a very nice park as well too. So I think those are nice one to visit.
Yeah, I believe that one's called the McGovern Centennial Garden.
Very long name, right in front of the museum, the science museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
And our last question of this interview, what do you want to be remembered for?
Ooh, I remember. Well, I would like to accomplish what I doing, bring awareness of climate change. Everything, nature is not there forever. It's up to us to make a difference. Whether I can get there or not, because it's a big job. It's bigger than I can handle it. But I would like to say that I would like for people to remember that the third generation of Asian kids come to America is using her ability of design and artistic background, bring the world much healthier direction to mankind. And if I can accomplish that, and if I can just move a little bit for everybody surrounding it, then I feel like I didn't waste my trip for my lifetime. And I wanted for them to remember my art and my design for it, things like that. So
What a beautiful answer. Thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to provide such detailed and comprehensive answers to all the questions I had for you. I really, really appreciate it and enjoyed this interview with you.
well, thank you very much for the opportunity. So I think it's great that schools putting this wonderful program together so that we can make this big gap of the culture thing getting closer, and also special for my daughter, this generation, that people can engage with their history and their culture as well too. So I think I didn't even know this program exists. So I'm so glad that I got an opportunity to kind of talk to you guys about things like that. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
For sure. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the recording right now.